Risk is the name of the game when it comes to investing, and the risky waters have only gotten more treacherous in the past year. How should companies and investors deal with that? Who better to ask here at the World Economic Forum than Inga Beale? She is the CEO of Lloyd. Wonderful to have you, and so much has changed since we last spoke and since you had just taken over as chief of this 327-year-old insurance firm. But clearly people are coming to you to say, how do I insure against risk?
Yeah, they do. And of course, we are in the risk business. And what a better place to be than the WEF, right? They issue a global risk report each year. This year, believe it or not, despite all the things that are going on in the world, the topmost risk is the risk of not mitigating against climate change. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, it's fascinating, but it doesn't feel real or realistic to a lot of people who would be watching, because they look at their investments and they look at all that's going on in the world, whether it's terrorism and ISIS or it's the global markets appearing to tip at least part of the areas like China and Brazil into recession. Russia's in recession. You know, that seems to be sort of secondary at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. But because we look at all the risks out there, we have to be aware of all of those. Some of them will affect insurance more than others. So something like a climate change, something like cybersecurity, the interconnectedness of the globe everywhere, and all the businesses relying on each other all over the world, they're the risks that are more focused, or we can provide sort of protection for. So that tends to be our focus. The choppy financial markets, yes, big time. That drives down business confidence. Business confidence means perhaps people not wanting to invest in the future. But my goodness, that is a risk, huge risk in itself. We have to invest in the future. The world is changing 10 times more quickly today than it did in the last industrial revolution. We have to act, we have to have the confidence to invest despite all the choppy waters that are out there.
Confidence, not fear, is what I'm hearing you say.
Definitely. Yeah. Confidence. And somehow we need to get the message out there to businesses that they still should invest in the future. So our job as in the insurance sector is to how can we de-risk their investments? How can we provide protection? How can we work with them to build resilience into their businesses, resilience into anything that they want to do that's new technology? How can we insure and protect them?
Well, Inga, as we stood here 1 year ago, I believe it was in this very area of the Central Lounge, you talked about cyber hacking and cybersecurity as what was climbing very quickly to the top of the list of concerns for CEOs and for global businesses. Where does that stand now?
That is still in the top 5 for businesses globally, and there's been ever more attacks and worrying attacks. Governments now, I'm pleased to report, are investing money in trying to get businesses to be resilient, to understand what they can do individually, and we're working on how to understand the systemic nature of the risk and where it goes from all the way across the world.
I always love to ask you, what's the craziest thing you've insured in the past year or two?
Well, I don't know about crazy, but we are insuring Taylor Swift in case she doesn't appear where she's meant to appear. So I would have said that's not crazy, but that's good. But one of the things we are doing, and it's particular for the US, for all your up-and-coming footballers. They're at college, they think they're going to have a fantastic career in football, they get an injury at college. Their career could be doomed forever in professional football. We've introduced a policy that will pay out if their career is stunted because of an injury through playing football at college.
Well, what about insuring journalists against, who knows, the ability to hold the microphone?
Yes.
There's always that.
Well, we do Papa John's hands. So the master pizza maker at Papa John's, his hands are insured at Lloyd's.
Oh, okay, insure my teeth. My mother always says, smile, smile. It's wonderful to speak to you. And you, as one of the only 18% female participants here at the World Economic Forum, what do you have to say about the fact that it seems to be slow going to have more women as participants here?
Yeah, it is perhaps an indication of the leadership across the world. Who is still in those really important leadership roles and what is the balance? But it is fascinating because one of the sessions here had someone from Tunisia, and they said 33% of the government in Tunisia is made up of females. And yet, we don't really see that perhaps that coming through in a place like this, where actually there are many, many governments and potentially businesses around the world that do have a very high percentage of women, but somehow they're not here. I don't know why that is.
Before we go, just from your gut feeling, what is the number one thing that you worry about that is facing our planet right now, the globe, and all that's happening when you tick off China's slowdown, ISIS, all kinds of issues with the migrants that are flooding into Europe. What tops your list?
It's very difficult to say, and I think I will go for two because they're particular to our sector. It's going to be climate change, I'm afraid, but we mustn't forget the great agreement that was reached in Paris in December. It should be top of anyone in insurance's agenda, and also the cybercrime risk, which is getting ever more prevalent everywhere across the world. And as we move through this digital revolution, it's going to be impacting all of us, even those of us in our homes. So to me, they're the top two that I would have on my list.
Can you pinpoint where most of the hacking attacks are coming from?
Very difficult. Usually the governments know all of that information, so something that we're not privy to.
So I can't get you to say Russia or China. We'll see. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Inga Beale.
Thank you.